What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Talking a big week here in football footy. It was insane. Justin and I were both at the RSL versus LAFC game. It was insane, tremendous. You had Chicho Arango back. Historic game for him. A lot of emotions going on. It was Carlos Vela's bobblehead night as well. Some fans got some didn't, and I saw a guy that got like 8 bobbleheads on social media. That guy definitely came up. But yeah, a lot to get into. Justin, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Yeah, it's trying to savor these last few games, you know. Only one more LAFC home game in the regular season now. It seems like there's been so much, but now it seems like it went by quickly, you know?
Yeah, no, it does. I can't believe this Wednesday is gonna be like their final game. And yeah, when you look at the schedule, they finished the last two on the road. But yeah, like it's so many. We covered. You probably been way more than I have. I know you have more games this year, and it's been a crazy amount of like games with LAFC and just with everything that's been going on, and even like some of the exhibitions and all these different games, Nations League and all this stuff. It's been a fun year of footy, like a lot going on this year. So it's been fun to cover the MLS. Just so many things happening, player signings, right? The addition of Messi. And now it's the final 3 games here. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about yesterday. Obviously, going into the standings, LAFC was in second place, right? They needed to get the win or at least get a tie to kind of just stay there and to hold their positioning. But we know obviously that didn't happen. But what were your thoughts on yesterday's game?
Yeah, I think it was another game where LAFC kind of showed that fatigue. They couldn't figure out ways to finish off their chances, and they did have chances. It wasn't the previous three scoreless games where maybe there weren't so many chances for LAFC. They created, I think they took 20 shots on goal, 7 on target. It was, you know, there were chances, but they were kind of half chances. None of them were kind of those clear cut ones that you would expect them to put in the back of the net. Um, I think RSL did a very good job in a compact mid block, and that was kind of the plan. Force LAFC down the wide channels, try and prevent them from playing through. And they didn't really do a great job for the first 15 minutes or so, in my opinion, RSL. But then after that, it settled down. They got back into the game, and of course, it only takes one. And when you have a guy like Chicho Arango, you're likely to get one.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. Yeah, with the game and everything that we saw, we witnessed. Yeah, it was to me LAFC, man. They're not looking good. Yeah, they haven't looked good. There's a fourth game that they haven't scored a goal, and it's just been bad. To me, I think they're running out of ideas. They've run out of ideas, as you can clearly see, and just with everything going on, like offensively, you have so many moving pieces, right? Kike looked good for a game or two. Then they brought in Nathan Ordaz and all these different things, and it's just like you said earlier, they had opportunities to score, they had chances to score, but they just couldn't get one in. And I think, I think Shono had talked about this, that they're tired. And I think anytime that you admit that and you want to say that, even though you are, to me, I kind of took that like this team is probably done. Like, they've played so many games this year, they've had so many different things going on. And right now, like right when things are going your way, even if you're in a close game, things tend to break for you. And right now, like going into the playoffs, things aren't breaking for LAFC. Like they're not getting the goals they would typically get, right? Because sometimes, like in this sport, you need some luck. LAFC is not getting any luck when it comes to these close games, when it comes to like these scoring opportunities, and they just don't got no momentum going into the playoffs. And I think it's probably going to be an early exit for LAFC if they don't get it right in these last 3 games. It's just going to be an early exit for them because I think mentally they're checked out, mentally they're tired, physically they're tired, and that's okay, because they've had the busiest schedule in MLS, with all these games, all these tournaments, but out of all that, they haven't won a tournament, they haven't won a trophy. And I think that's what's going to leave a bad taste in fans' mouths, people that support this club, because you've had so many opportunities to win a trophy, yet you haven't. You've come so close, yet you haven't. You haven't done what many people expected to you. And this is LAFC, right? Expectations are always going to be high, and when you don't meet those expectations, people are going to criticize you. People are going to criticize the coaching. People are going to criticize the players, and all these different things. That's what happens when you play in a big market. That's what happens when you have players the like of Carlos Vela, Denny Buanga, what no other MLS teams have, right? I promise you, other MLS teams around the league would want those type of players and would want those opportunities that LAFC's had this year. And when you don't meet those expectations and when you don't exceed those expectations and you get knocked out in the early round in the Leagues Cup and you get embarrassed by Monterrey, you get embarrassed by Leon at home, and you also lose against Tigres and Campeones Cup at home, there's going to be questions to be asked about this team, who's running this club and all these different things, because it just hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all boils down to, as you say, the lack of goals, right? And, LAFC have been reliant on Denny Bouanga this entire season. And that has been, fine when Denny Bouanga has been absolutely wrecking every team that he comes up against, right? He is the highest goal contributions leader in all competitions among MLS players for a reason. But when you are so reliant on one player, when that player is not scoring, you're screwed. And that to me is the problem. And I asked Sharundalo this, I think about a month ago. And I said, the goals started to come from other areas. I think LAFC won 4-0 or something without Boanga scoring. Can't remember exactly the game. Excuse me. And I asked Sharundalo, is it good to see those goals coming from elsewhere? And he said, I don't really care where the goals come from as long as they're coming. And I think that right now we can see that it matters where those goals come from, because if you are only having it from one guy, then that slump is going to turn into a slump for your entire team, not just for one guy. And
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the case last year, right? The goals were spread around. This year, they're not. If I'm not mistaken, I think 6 players on LAFC have scored more than one goal in MLS play. So it's a very limited committee. And as you say, it's reliant on Carlos Vela, Denny Bouanga, and Carlos Vela has not been performing to what we expect of Carlos Vela, and Denny Bouanga has been great, but of course he can't do it every single game for you.
No, you can't do it every single game to you. And eventually it's like it's 2-1-1 from Denny Bouanga. And I think everybody already knows what Denny Bouanga is going to do. When Denny Bouanga goes 1-on-1, to me, he's probably the best in the league when it comes to MLS, outside of Messi, obviously. But 1-on-1 on the league, he's just almost unstoppable. But I think people kind of figured him out a little bit. And probably was also the fact that he's tired. We've seen the last couple stretches of games, he tends to do a little too much. And I think the reason why he's doing too much because he feels like, damn, if I don't score a goal, we probably don't have a chance. And I think that's where you're starting to see him overthinking it, probably doing a little too much when he should pass the ball a couple of times. And I think when a player starts doing that way and he starts to feel the pressure that I need to score a goal, and instead of the game coming to him, instead of those opportunities coming to him, we haven't seen, obviously, at the start of the year, Denny Blanc was going off. He was hot, but they're missing another player to score the goals. Mario Gonzalez was supposed to be the guy. Kike, he's still coming in. But who was the other player that was scoring those goals for them last year? Chicho Arango. Chicho Arango was scoring those goals for them last year. And I mentioned at the start of earlier this year, I felt like it was a bad decision to let Chicho Arango go. But who scored a goal yesterday against LAFC was Chicho Arango. And I'm so happy for him and for him scoring the goal against LAFC, because I just felt like I don't think they appreciated him. It just doesn't come to outside looking in. I don't know how it is, but I don't know how you how you let go of a player like Chicho Arango, who was loved by the fans and is still loved by the fans, scored goals, came from behind, put the team on their back when they were having that terrible 2021 season or whatever. Did so much for the club, the community, and everything. And I guess their response was like they didn't want to blow up the roster. Well, to me, you can blow up the roster for a Chicho Arango because those are players that are only come like once in a lifetime, once in a blue moon. That are having that play amazing, but also are loved by the community. And like to me, he has everything about a superstar, right? Just the charisma, the everything, the goal celebrations Fans love him, and I'm happy that he's excelling and he's doing things with RSL. He just put RSL in second place, right, and got his little revenge back goal. But you also see how that he didn't want to celebrate because it was like those mixed emotions that he helped LAFC win a trophy, win a championship. Yeah, he said after the game, after out of respect to my teammates and to my fans, I didn't want to celebrate. And I'm like, man, when you saw that and he told us that at the end of the press conference, is like LAC just made the biggest mistake. This is probably the biggest mistake they've ever done, letting go of a player. This goes obviously over Walker Zimmerman and all these different things. Just like, how do you let go of a player that is this love and this respectful, and you don't see that? And I just don't feel like they appreciated. Um, they just didn't really appreciate him. Like, just the point of the fact that LAC may say that, but I was like, a player like Chicho Arango, you make it happen, even if you have to let go of certain pieces. Just what he's done and what he's been able to do, and just the class act, it's just insane, and I still can't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can debate, whether or how much LAFC actually needed to blow up that roster in order to keep Chicho Arango. In my opinion, it didn't need to be blown up, really. I think that you could have kept him around, but it is what you say. And it's interesting to me because, as you say, the fans always appreciated Chicho Arango. They always knew what they had in Chicho Arango, but it felt like maybe Steve Cherundolo didn't.
Yep.
Maybe John Thorrington didn't, right? Steve wanted a striker who can press more than Chicho, who can have hold up play more than Chicho, who can have an all around game in a different way than Chicho Arango. But ultimately, your striker is meant to score goals. John Thorrington thought, well, I got to give him a raise. I don't know if I want to give him a raise. I can find another player to score the same amount of goals on a cheaper salary. Well, I don't think that John Thorrington can, because Mario Gonzalez has not shown to be that guy yet. And maybe he will prove us all wrong, but right now it doesn't seem to be that way. And hindsight's 2020, but that's the thing, is that for LAFC fans, it wasn't hindsight. They knew it at the time.
Mhm.
It just seems like the people at the club didn't. And yeah, as you say, it's a great moment for Chicho to come back and say, look what you're missing. Look what
Uh,
made this mistake, because you're running for playoffs, we're running for playoffs, and guess what? I just put my team above yours.
100%. And yeah, and it comes down to, yeah, just John Thornton. And I feel like Sharondolo, to his point, look, to me, I feel like Sharondolo's guy is Danny Boanga. I think he's loved, like, he presses high, he's a winger and stuff like that. But I like, to your point, just going back, that they didn't appreciate Chicho's knack of scoring goals. I think even when we asked, because there was like, I think I remember like last year in the season that there was like a little bit of a riff. That Chicho wasn't starting, Chicho was scoring these goals, and he was getting subbed out when he was with LAFC. I don't know if you recall. And I just felt like, I thought it was so weird that Sharondolo did not appreciate his knack for scoring goals. Maybe he didn't defend, or maybe, but like you said, you don't need your striker necessarily to defend that much. If he's scoring goals, like, you can kind of offset that, and it's okay, right? It's not like he's a lazy player, but it was just, I just never understood that. I just never understood that. I don't think I'll never understand that. And I think now they're really realizing that, yeah, they overthought it. And I'm like, if their excuse is that, they had to blow up the roster, and I was and all these different things, I know you and I could, go back and forth of like how you had to give up Jose Cifuentes and Chiqui Palacios. I'm like, come on, like, that is a no-brainer to me. If those were the players, right? Like, no disrespect to anybody on the team, but I would put Chicho Rongo above pretty much anybody, obviously, except Carlos Vela and Boanga. Like, those, like, anybody else within LAFC's, in my opinion, is replaceable for what Chicho Rongo did for this club and all these different things. They just like, just the intangibles, man, just the intangibles that he did for the club. Like, I don't know how, like, they didn't see that. Like, this guy is just perfect culture for our club. Like, just like outside of the game, like outside of the actual game, he is like perfect. And it's just so weird, that they didn't appreciate him the way he should be treated. And I'm so happy that RSL is happy to have him. I'm so happy that RSL fans appreciate it. I'm so happy that he's found this new team in MLS that loves him and respects him, and pays him how he's supposed to be paid. He's a DP, he's a DP type player. He was a DP type player with LAFC, and LAFC didn't want to give him that money. That's on LAFC and the people running the club because they made a terrible decision. I don't know how someone does that much for your club and you don't reward him for it. And I'm so happy for him, and I'm so happy that RSL is paying him. And look, and he's proven it going in second place above LAFC. All the kudos to Chicho.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's crazy because you're sitting here thinking he's so clearly a designated player, and we can go back to it, but in my opinion, the LAFC didn't even need to make him a designated player in order to keep him. It's just
He said
insanity.
he said he didn't even ask to be a DP. I
He
think
did
I
not.
remember on Twitter, like there was like some go back and forth. He didn't even ask to be a DP. Which is crazy. And you still could have had him. You still could have had him on a
And
TAM, like a high TAM salary. And you probably be a different story. Like, you'd probably be a different story this year.
yep, yeah, and you say the intangibles, but to me, it's just the tangibles. I mean, just the goals. It just he want goals, and LAFC it's the lowest scoring season in club history. They had not gone more than 2 games without scoring. The games without a goal was the longest streak in LAFC history. That had only happened one time in 2020. They've doubled that twice this season. They have had 13 games in which they haven't scored a goal in this season in all competitions. They've only had 19 in their previous 5 seasons combined. Never more than 5 in a season. It's just it's clearly a major drop off because you've lost the guy that scores you the goals. You got another goal scorer in Denny Bawanga, but imagine if you had both. Just imagine where LAFC would be right now. I tell you one thing, they wouldn't be trophyless.
Yeah, they wouldn't be trophyless, and I think also Danny Bwanga probably wouldn't have as many goals, but you offset with Chicho scoring those goals because those goals are going to come different, and I think that is okay, and that is okay. But I think they just overvalued Danny Bwanga, which he's a superstar in his own right. But you had 2 superstars that could have just, to me, I literally saw, just to finish this off. I know I'm going to rant, but to me, I saw Chicho Arango. He's like, okay, he's the guy that's going to take over Carlos Vela. He's the guy, like, in terms of like, you have a player from like speaks Spanish, Hispanic or Latino, whatever you want to call. He can score the goals. He's loved by the fans. Like, he has all the things. He's more charismatic than Carlos Vela. He's more like, right. He's more engaging with the fans. That to me was like, okay, I'm not saying there's a perfect replacement for Carlos Vela, but I'm like, he's next in line to this is his team, right? He's next in line to be the next franchise player. That's what I thought. I'm like, okay, they got their guy because after Carlos Vela, you have to find someone else. And I was like, oh, it's Chicho Arango. And then once, like at the start of this year, I was like, then who's going to be the guy? Like, Danny Bwanga is a great, great, great individual player, great talent. But look, he just doesn't speak English. The fans love him. Look, I'm not gonna. I don't want to say just because he doesn't speak the language, but like the intangibles of having a superstar and and having that connection with fans and different things. Everything Chicho had everything that you wanted Carlos Vela to be with the fans, and then you also have the goals that, like, him and Boanga could score, and it's just look, man, it just is what it isn't, and it's unfortunate. But I'm like, look, I'm happy for Chicho and that he's found a home. And look, hopefully he has a deep playoff run. And look, he could potentially anything can happen in the playoffs. And if they're rolling this high, anything can happen. And yeah, it's unfortunate that LAFC fans are the ones that are losing out. And so are we that watch him every week and stuff like that. And just in this press conference yesterday, like, talking to him, and he spoke in English, and it was just like, you could see in his face like he was happy, but at the same time, it was just like this weird thing. Like, like they had asked, one of the reporters had asked him if he would come back and return to LAFC, and all he did is like, look, pretty much he said he didn't want to disrespect RSL. He loves where he's at. He loves being loved, but you never know what could happen in the future. As much I would love to see him play again for LAFC, I don't think he should come back. Like, you missed out. Like, you missed out. Like, you can't go back to your ex after they did you dirty. You just can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just can't. And like, and I hope he has an amazing career with RSL and wherever he goes, because man, I'm telling you, like, the tangibles are amazing, but the intangibles make them that much better to me.
Yeah, no, RSL is the spot for him. he's settled in well there in Salt Lake. His family, has a house there. It's a perfect spot. He's the club record signing. He's got all the love. It everything works out for him there. I think it's a perfect place for him, and I hope he continues to score goals for them for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, same here. All right, should we switch over? Talk about the Galaxy. The Galaxy, man.
Yeah.
I thought they had won. I was like, I remember you had talked about like, hey, did you see the Galaxy game? I was like, oh yeah, I think I saw them win 3-2 or whatever. They're like, no, they lost. They tied 3-3. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm not surprised because the last time I checked the score against the Timbers, I was watching the Canelo fight, so I was just like, I was more in tune into that Canelo winning, showing what's up, showing the fighting. He's back, baby. He's back. So anybody saw that fight, completely dominated Charlo. For those that didn't see that, yeah, I was more into that. But they ended up tying against the Timbers. They're still in 13th place. I don't know if they're gonna make it. I've counted them out for a while now. But look, anything happened here in these final games. What were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they needed 3 points for sure. I felt that way kind of for a while, but now it's a situation where literally they would have to win their remaining 4 games and get significant amount of help elsewhere in order to make that playoff line. I don't see it happening. 6 points out, 4 games to go. That schedule is not easy. I think 3 of their 4
Tough.
upcoming games are playoff teams, and so it's just, and obviously all 4 of them are above Galaxy in the standings, which isn't saying much, but it's a very, very tough task for Galaxy. And what's interesting to me really is just going to be how much pressure Greg Vanney comes under in the offseason, because I think a lot of Galaxy fans would say that it's time to let him go. But I think, at least from my perspective, there doesn't seem to be a high likelihood of that actually happening. And this is a kind of the middle ground that I want to see where it happens, because I don't expect him to go, but I expect some pressure to be put on him by the fan base, especially if that 13th place finish remains.
Yeah, I think to me it was just like the we knew they had limitations on building the roster and who they could bring in, but I think the biggest thing to me his French project didn't work. He signed Kevin Cabral. Like I don't want to go all the way back, but like that was the biggest signing. It was like what was like a 5-year deal. The youngest guy to sign a 5-year deal. He was like the promise of the future. Like oh, okay, and he was a bust from right out the gate. Right. So Kevin Cabral didn't work out. Koulibaly was an okay center back. Grand Sir was probably the best of the three, but he was so inconsistent. He had times he looked like an amazing winger, and then at times he wasn't. Um, and then I think there was one more, Ralverson, Ryan Ralverson. Do you remember him? He had an amazing bicycle kick, but they had to sell him because of they were getting Ricky Pooch, right? Overall, like his French project didn't work out, and I think that's what like he had all his eggs kind of in that one basket, and he had to switch over to bringing different players from different parts of the world and just different things. And I think what this is second, third year now with the Galaxy. I have it, like it's just like yeah, it's not like he hasn't had his time to sign his players that he wanted. Look, the injuries and all these things, the injuries to Chicharito, Caceres, and all these things, like those are things that happen. But there are also things that when you have injuries and player injuries, like you're able to adapt in just different things. And I think they weren't able to adapt. And I think once he realized that, like Cabral, he had to get rid of Cabral because the fans hated Cabral and just didn't do that. They didn't do what he was supposed to do. I think his initial plan just didn't work. And I don't know, like last year was an amazing year for them, right? They went all the way to LAFC and all these different things. You're supposed to be better than last year. And I think last year was his best year. His first year was okay. I didn't think they made the playoffs. Second year, they went to LAFC. This year, doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. So you had an okay year the first year. The second year, you did all right, right? This year, you're doing worse than last year. Maybe just worse than your first year. You know, and I was just like, I think the biggest thing too that fans were upset, from what I recall, is like he was backing up Chris Klein when no one was supporting Chris Klein. right? And I think to advocate for him, I know he's your boss and all these different things, but you also got to be able to read between the lines. Maybe he was getting pressure from Chris Klein, like, "Hey, I need you to support me on this." Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs and all that, but I think that's when I was like, okay, like it's hard to advocate support someone that 100% everybody just on the organization, on the fan base doesn't like, and just to have the season that they're having. Jovic wanting out. Yeah, Jovic hasn't had a year. Ricky Pooch, maybe. I think we were talking with a couple of reporters that he may want out. Like, we'll see if that's true. Those are just some rumblings. Like, I don't know. I think you may. To me, I think you may need to start somewhere fresh with the new voice. I think that what what they've done and maybe the players that they've been able to bring in. I don't know how much input Vanny has had. I felt that's been coming from I can't hear Will Kuntz. It's been coming from more Will Kuntz, and I think having Will Kuntz there, he's going to be able to bring in the type of players they need and then just different things. I think Will Kuntz understands how he wants to build this roster, how he wants to bring in players or what they need. But I also think you know, he has to be looking elsewhere. He has to at least have some options at coaching, because yes, it's the LA Galaxy, but why not start this whole new program with new players and because you're going to have at least two DPs open, right? And you can have a new coach come in. So yeah, I don't think it's a far possibility that maybe Greg Vandy's not here. This is his third year. That's a lot of time when it comes to coaching nowadays. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it before, but yeah, as you say, Will Kuntz should be named that GM. I don't know exactly what the situation is there because, that's what brings success in MLS at this point is a good GM and a good head coach. And if you can get those two things to work together, that's what's going to happen. Right? We saw it. Look at the best two teams in MLS this season, right? St. Louis win the West. Congratulations to them, by the way, clinching with that LAFC loss. Lutz Pfannenstiel and Bradley Carnell have done a fantastic job building that roster, and Bradley Carnell of implementing that roster to the best of his ability. And they have in their inaugural season won the West and gotten a Champions Cup berth, the first team to ever do that. Right, FC Cincinnati. You look at Chris Albright and Pat Noonan, where they have completely turned around that team from the worst team in MLS in 3 consecutive years. And then those two were hired within 2 years. They've turned them into a Supporters Shield champion, right? I made a whole video on that on Upper 90 if you're more curious. But it is just those two positions in MLS are the most important positions, more
Mhm.
important than any position on the field. Because if you get those two hires right, they will build you a winning club.
Yeah, no, and it does, and it's like, look, and what FC Cincinnati, no one's saying like I want to go move to FC Cincinnati, right? Like, if we're being honest, compared to LA, right? Like, you've had so many superstars that could come to LA, so many bigger name coaching opportunities, just to live where we live. There's more options, and you have more pull on different things. And when you have a city like FC Cincinnati and the coaching and the GM and behind the off, they're working hard. They got to work hard and even harder than out here because of what you're able to do. And I think shout out to them, shout out to St. Louis of what they've been doing because it's not easy. St. Louis has been did this in their first year. So it's like the Midwest is doing a solid job, and it's just like with the resources that you have here in LA. That's why I feel also too like I don't know. I just feel to me it's maybe time to look elsewhere when it comes to a head coaching job of the LA Galaxy because resources are going to be there for Galaxy that other team coaching coaches are going to be available that aren't available for FC Cincinnati, right? Like the pool is much larger for coaches that would want to come to LA, right? That would want to come to Southern California post FC Cincinnati. If you just talk about location, maybe it's not guaranteed success, but you just have a wider range of coaches to choose from. You have a wider range of players to choose from. And I think that's why to me, when you don't at least make at least make the playoffs or have somewhat of a winning season, you have a down year. I think it's definitely time to look elsewhere, and I think we'll just have to see what Will Kuntz decide to do because he definitely has his pulse. He definitely has a vision on how he sees the Galaxy going, and I really feel this way. I really feel like Galaxy are going to have a big year next year. I know that doesn't mean anything for 2023, right? But I'm sorry, Galaxy fans, but next year's going to be potentially the year, whatever that means. Better than this year.
I'm pretty sure that Galaxy fans would take that. If it means not making playoffs this year, they'll be happy with a good 2024. If that means a vast improvement, obviously.
Yeah, no, it does, and I think there needs to be major changes. You know, that's just my point. And look, they have 4 games left. If we look at the games that they have, oh, it's terrible. You know, they got the Sounders, Minnesota. You got RSL who just beat LAFC, and then you got FC Dallas. Like, come on, all those teams are competing for at least they're going to be in the playoffs or competing for playoff positioning, and LA Galaxy, they're on the outside looking in against 4 tough opponents.
Yeah, it's a done deal for me. But the fact that it's not mathematically a done deal is just an insanity of MLS. Shows how unimportant the regular season is outside of winning that Supporters Shield. Really.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I know the Galaxy will make it interesting these last 4 games. If they make it, if it comes down to the final game, that would be exciting.
That would be impressive.
I would potentially go to that game against FC Dallas, I believe. By the way, I had someone DM me. They're like, I see all this LAFC coverage. When's the next time you're gonna go to the Galaxy game? Word for word, right? And I literally reply back, and I'm like, let me ask you the same question. Like, when's the last time you've been to a Galaxy game, right? Like, and they were like, okay, fair. And they're like, in the buenas and las malas, I still support my club. I was like, look. I didn't ask you if you still support your club. You asked me when you're going to the game. If you're not going to the game, if you're a hardcore fan, why the hell should I? If you're not, like they got to win. Look, if they go to the playoffs, I think they deserve the coverage. But if they're not, like if team's been out for a while, like, and the fan, which I appreciate DMing me, is asking me why I'm not going. Do you know why we're not going?
Gio says he only covers the good teams.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it has to be worth our time. It has to be worth our time. Like, it's like if it's an exciting game, like if the Galaxy have been out for like a month, like of all these injuries, like, come on. And it's not just me, it's not just me that like, I'm pretty sure it's not the one that's not going. But if they make the playoffs, if it comes down to the final FC Dallas game, and if it's like make or break, you'll get the coverage.
There we go.
Well, with that said, anything else you'd like to add, Justin?
Nah, man. Just second congratulations to Cincinnati and St. Louis for their impressive seasons. They deserve all the credit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, man. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought those 2 teams would be leading the way when it comes to MLS? But yeah, and I like there's other competition like that. It's gonna make LAFC better. It's gonna have to make Galaxy better, right? Everybody else, and it's like, it continues to show just because you have these big names in LA doesn't mean guaranteed automatic success. Doesn't mean you're gonna win all these trophies. And it's just like it just shows that there's competition. You got to bring your best every year. So and it's good that the love is getting spread everywhere. And those other teams are spreading. Because I felt for a while FC Cincinnati had a really strong fan base, but just didn't have a really good team. And now they have both, right? Like how you have UCLAFC has a strong fan base, and last year they were winning trophies. So it's good to see that. It's good to see that they're growing, the league's growing and everything like that. But with that said, Justin, that's going to wrap things up for us, guys. Thank you guys for listening. For Justin, this is Gio.